Tonight, the most prominent Republican who's running for president against Donald Trump, he joins us. Former Massachusetts Governor William Weld. He'll weigh in on impeachment and more. Then, we make you part of the program. Do you support the impeachment inquiry? Our toll-free number up on your screen, 888-766-2428. Give us a call. We want to hear from you. Also, we're going to show you how President Trump is frankly pulling a fast one on the American public and leaving them to pick up the tab. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. The phone lines, as we say, are open. The toll-free number right there on your screen. And our question for you is, do you support the impeachment inquiry? Give us a call. And as I said, we want to hear from you. But we start tonight with the White House flat out refusing to cooperate with the impeachment inquiry. The President's counsel writing a letter to Democratic leadership, and I want to read a portion of it to you. Your unprecedented actions have left the president with no choice. In order to fulfill his duties to the American people, the Constitution, the executive branch, and all future occupants of the office of the presidency, President Trump and his administration cannot participate in your partisan and unconstitutional inquiry under these circumstances. Now, legal scholars, they're teeing off on the letter, and it's dicey at best legal footing. This article in Rolling Stone quotes just a few of them. One, Georgetown law professor, describing it as a set of totally absurd legal arguments attempting to justify what is clearly contempt of Congress. Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe, he calls its legal reasoning utter and total garbage. A lawyer who used to work in the Senate for Marco Rubio, the Republican Florida senator, describes it as a middle finger to Congress and its oversight responsibilities. Now, the White House letter, it came a few hours after the president blocked a key player in the Ukraine scandal from appearing before Congress, Gordon Sondland. He's a big Trump donor who became the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Sondland apparently served as a point person between Trump and the Rudy Giuliani-led efforts to pressure Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Now, Democrats, they want to hear from the ambassador, and they want to get Sondland's emails, text messages, and more, as he could be a linchpin to the whole story. Now, Sondland seems to know what the president knew and when he knew it. So let's go back to that key text exchange between Sondland and Bill Taylor. He's U.S. top diplomat in Ukraine. Taylor really concerned as to the dialogue between the U.S. and Ukraine, and he made his concerns point blank. It is the concern that he says, as I said on the phone, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. It is a text where Sondland directly said there was no quid pro quo, a point Republicans have tried to seize on. Then he says, let's stop texting. But this is important. Sondland's response, in detailed language as any lawyer would be, it came after a 4.5-hour delay. And we have learned that during that 4.5 hours, Sondland called Trump directly, and only after that call did he send that text evoking that now infamous quid pro quo defense. Plus, we are also getting new details about Trump's call to the head of Ukraine that started this whole thing. Once a whistleblower reported, at the Times is reporting this following story, quote, a White House official who listened to the president's July phone call, now this is not second, third hand, this is a person directly on the call, said it is crazy and frightening and completely lacking in substance relating to national security. Those are the apparent verbatim quotes. The official was visibly shaken by what had happened. But Trump's defenders in Congress and on his favorite news channel, Fox, they are continuing to parrot the talking points. Take a listen to Congressman Matt Gaetz out of Florida.
What we see in this impeachment is a kangaroo court, and Chairman Schiff is acting like a malicious Captain Kangaroo.
Captain Kangaroo. Here is a sample of what the folks over at Fox are saying about this whole thing.
Constant, unyielding resistance from the deep state operatives that are undermining his foreign policy and his ability to be commander-in-chief by leaking new deep state leak. This is a warning, pretty much a minute by minute. A new whistleblower every second. No other president in the history of this country has had to deal with this onslaught from a deep state bureaucracy swamp from within. Only Donald Trump. And now we're seeing even more leaks from more whistleblowers. There's no end to the whistleblowers that are not whistleblowers. That didn't work out. We'll find some more.
So get ready here. You're going to hear from the lawmakers and the Trump aiders and abettors a lot of this deep state garbage, whatever that means here, and also portraying the president as the victim out of all this. Now, let's stay with Fox News. Here is right-wing attorney Joe DiGenova and also Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani.
What you're seeing is regicide. This is regicide by another name, fake impeachment. We get first one anonymous informant, then a second anonymous informant. I refuse to call them whistleblowers. These two non-entities are suicide bombers.
I went back to read two books about the Salem witch trials. They required witnesses to face the witch, and some witches were acquitted. It's ridiculous. Remember the president used to call this a witch hunt? This is now worse than a witch hunt.
The witches had it better, in other words.
They had more rights.
They had it better.
They had more rights.
Wait. Despite all the spin coming from the president and the supporters, public opinion, though, it has clearly shifted in favor of impeachment. A new Washington Post poll shows nearly 6 in 10 Americans now support the impeachment inquiry, and only 38% of Americans oppose it, a major shift in just the last few weeks. Plus, 49% say that Trump should be convicted in the Senate and removed from office. 44% oppose his removal. And for more, let's bring in our guest. William Weld joins me now, the former Republican governor of Massachusetts. He is running for president against Trump. He's also a former federal prosecutor, so he certainly has got perspective on this. Governor, thank you for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. My pleasure.
Well, I know you're already on record as the president's actions vis-a-vis Ukraine. You call it treason pure and simple, and you believe it's past time that impeachment proceedings happened here. I want to read a quote from you from another Republican at another time. And many people draw parallels to Joe McCarthy and McCarthyism. Margaret Chase Smith, she was Republican senator from Maine, and she went after her fellow senator, Joe McCarthy, senator from Wisconsin at the time. She said, "It's high time that we stop thinking politically as Republicans and Democrats about elections and started thinking patriotically as Americans about national security based on individual freedom. I don't want to see the Republican Party ride to political victory on the 4 horsemen of calumny: fear, ignorance, bigotry, and smear." To that end, Governor, do you feel like a lone voice out there in your party right now? Or are people just afraid to say what they really believe because they've got elections next year?
Well, I know a lot of the senior Republicans in the Senate, and they're all very decent people. And I haven't braced them individually on this because it's their business at this point. But, you know, it's too bad that people in Washington are so obsessed with re-election, because if they weren't obsessed with re-election, there'd be no need to toe the line for this man who is extraordinarily disruptive and mendacious, lies all the time, and utterly heedless of any restraint on his power whatsoever. Is precisely what the removal clause in the Constitution was aimed at. So it's very puzzling. These are people of stature and character, and I don't know what kind of magic spell or magic dust Donald J. Trump has when he crosses the border into Washington, D.C., but I'd like to know.
You know, Governor, a lot of people have talked, obviously, about why the actions the president's even acknowledged already, let alone what we'll find out, are so bad, and even impeachable offenses. But not a lot of people talk about the consequences if it goes unpunished. As mentioned before, you're a former federal prosecutor yourself. What happens to basic checks and balances or inviting foreign powers if this is allowed to stand as acceptable practice of a president?
Well, this president wants to erase all checks and balances. I mean, he's obviously hell-bent on destroying our democratic institutions. Only somebody who had that in mind would begin by saying to the American people, well, a free press is the enemy of the people. I mean, that's the hallmark of would-be dictators throughout history. They try to persuade the people that any bulwark against their assuming illegitimate power is the enemy of the people, and they break them down one by one. And when the last tree is cut down, they're left alone there with all the power. There's many indications that Mr. Trump has that in mind. He praises Xi Jinping for abolishing elections. He says, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to have primaries or elections? He refers to himself in his third term. I mean, he's not even being coy about it.
Coming back to your party, and I want to talk about your bid and how maybe there's an avenue that could open up here for you. We have a lot of former Republicans who come in the program. Chris Shea is a good friend to this program, and he doesn't recognize the party anymore. We'll see the party condemn the president over abandoning the Kurds in Syria, but they won't even come close, other than maybe a handful, to say what the president did was wrong, let alone that he should be impeached regarding Ukraine. Is there a place for Reagan Republicans anymore in this party?
I think this party has big trouble. First of all, I think Mr. Trump is going to lose by a mile next year if he's on the ballot. I shake 300, 500 hands a day in New Hampshire, and that support is just not there, including from people who voted for him last time around. I think the party is going to suffer massive losses next year if Mr. Trump is still around. And indeed, it'll suffer massive losses in the Senate if those friends of mine who are in the Senate, the senior Republicans, all vote to acquit him, because that's not where the temper of the country is going to be starting in about 1 month. So I think the party could split in half. It happened, as you know, Richard, a century ago or more with the Whig Party, which was the predecessor of the Republicans, broke in half. The pro-slavery part was called the Know-Nothings. That was essentially the Trump wing, anti-immigrant, violent rallies, conspiracy theories. And the other half of the party went on to elect Abraham Lincoln president of the United States 4 years later. So you could have a happy ending like that. But I think the party will be unrecognizable in a year, not only by dogma, but also in form.
Well, the party could do something about it beyond even just voting their conscience. They could give you basically a fair shot. And I say that because there are some primaries that they're not even going to hold anymore, and the RNC basically is trying to clear the decks for Trump. From a practical level, forgetting morality or anything else, to me it would make sense, if things go south for this president, to have a viable Republican on the ballot for next year. Do you have any indication from the RNC and some of the party fathers that, hey, because they don't know how this impeachment could turn out for the president, they're more open now to a real run by yourself and a few others who have already thrown their hat in the ring?
No, I don't pick up any sense at all from the National Committee or the party in Washington that they have interest in doing anything other than trying to ensure that the president doesn't face a contest. I agree with you, though. It would be handy to have someone on the ballot, and I will be on the ballot, and I'm a two-term governor, and I was ranked the most fiscally conservative governor in the United States. About the only thing wrong with me from the National Party's point of view is I'm pro-choice on reproductive rights, and I was an early backer of gay rights. But if they can't live with that, they're not going to live very long politically anyway.
We've been wrong so many times before on all these predictions with Trump, but do you have a sense here this is going to get a lot worse the more the facts come out for him, and that Republicans that are either been quiet or on the fence at the end of the day are going to say that he can't stay in office anymore?
It doesn't need to get any worse, Richard. It's already way, way over the mark of any prior impeachment. And I'm familiar with the facts of all of them. I worked on the Nixon impeachment, and in fact wrote the book on what's grounds for removal of a president. What's going to happen, the sea change will happen when that 51% who now favor removal of the president goes to 60% or 62%, because those Republican senators who are up, they can't take comfort in the fact that maybe Republicans 80-20 still back the president, because those senators have to win the general election, not just the primary. So they've got to take into account what the people of the country as a whole feel.
Well, Governor, you're going to have a fascinating few months ahead of you, how this all plays out. I certainly appreciate your time. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much, Richard.
All right, everyone, we open our phone lines now to you. Our toll-free number right there on your screen, 888-766-2428. Also spells out to 888-RNN-CHAT. So here's a question. Do you support the impeachment inquiry? We asked this a few weeks ago. Many things have changed, including the national polling numbers. We're going to get your reaction right after this break. Tomorrow, also on RFL, we will continue, obviously, with the latest developments, and we'll be joined by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. She'll weigh in on impeachment and much more.